I'm Salvatore Babones. This week on India Outside In, India's farm protesters are actually among its richest farmers, not its poorest. For the last 6 months, the big news out of India hasn't been the standoff in Ladakh, the emergence of the Quad, or even Indian vaccines saving the world from coronavirus. Instead, it's been the Indian government's treatment of its quote-unquote poor farmers. The entire international press corps has bought into the poor farmers narrative, and no wonder. India has lots of farmers, most of them are poor. What could be wrong with that message? Well, anyone who needs solid analysis, all you have to do is turn to the celebrities. Of course, Rihanna, Greta Thunberg, Meena Harris, all tweeting the truth on technical agricultural issues. That's where you turn, right? Well, no. Well, to be honest, I think it's a bit over the top for some in India to be burning a teenage girl in effigy because they're angry about her tweets. But nonetheless, the whole poor farmers narrative does need some cleaning up. The problem is that although India does have many poor farmers, it's not the poor farmers who are actually out protesting in Delhi. In fact, the people who are riding their tractors into Delhi are among India's richest farmers. The key is right there in all the photos. It's the tractors. Statistically speaking, a typical Indian farmer is 10 times as likely to own a bullock than to own a tractor. When Delhi's roads get clogged by farm animals who've been brought in to stage a protest, beware, a government is about to come tumbling down. But tractors, that's the Indian farm equivalent of an American Tesla parade. I mean, it's great visuals, but it's not much of a threat at the polling booths. The second tip-off threat at the polling booths. The second tip-off is in those polling numbers. Roughly half of India is tied to the farm, give or take, depending on which statistics you use. But Prime Minister tied to the farm, give or take, depending on which statistics you use. But Prime Minister Narendra Modi's disapproval rating, the percentage of people who actually disapprove of his performance in office, is down at around 6%. Now, working on the very basic political theory that when people are out protesting against a government because they think it's going to destroy their very livelihood, they, well, disapprove of that government. If you take that for granted, then the whole India's farmers are rebelling against Modi and the BJP narrative just falls flat on its face. The fact is that the farmers clogging the streets of Delhi aren't India's poorest farmers. They're actually among India's richest farmers, or at least they are richer than poor farmers we've been led to believe. They mainly hail from Punjab and Haryana, the richest farming states in India, and of course, they can afford to take time off work from farming to spend 6 months protesting. That is a rare luxury in rural India. If a bunch of local farmers had burned down a mandi in their local area, okay, that's a farm protest. If people can travel to Delhi, again, you kind of know something is up here. Now, even the richest farmers in India are poor farmers by American and European standards. And full credit to Greta Thunberg, in addition to tweeting her support for India's poor farmers, she's also tweeted in opposition to Europe's common agricultural policy. And if there's one policy that's keeping the farmers of the world poor, it's the European Union's CAP. That said, we're here to talk about Indian standards. And by India's standards, the farmers of Haryana and Punjab earn roughly twice the national average, 3 times as much as the poor farmer, what British consider the martial races of India. These are the yeomanry of India, the soldiers, the traditional military agricultural class, very much like in England's yeoman farmer tradition of olden days. They actually still form, Rajput Jackson Sikhs still form the ceremonial bodyguard of the Indian president. Obviously, I have nothing against the protesters, nothing against Jats, Sikhs, or Hindu, Muslim, otherwise. On balance, I suspect that India's farm reforms are timely and necessary. On balance, I think they will help the poorest farmers of India, India's actual poor farmers, the types whose children have to go travel interstate to become migrant workers on the big farms of Haryana and Punjab because they have no opportunities back home. But that's why I'm so passionate about this issue. The big issue for me here is the ignorance and misreporting of Western media. It's like an old Doctor Who episodes. Every planet Tom Baker visited seemed to have some rebellion or another going on, and the Doctor always intervened to help the rebels. Now, he didn't stop to ask, are the rebels really telling the truth? Are they the ones I should sympathize with? Or take Star Wars, for example. No one stops to think maybe the Empire had a point in suppressing the rebellion. Shed a tear for all those soldiers killed on those, I think it was, lost count, Death Stars that were destroyed by the rebellion, the rebel terrorists in Star Wars. Look, my point is, the fact that people are protesting doesn't necessarily make them right. The media should take some time, put in some effort, dig up the facts, as journalists are supposed to do. When American farmers roll up to a protest wearing their MAGA hats, or when British farmers go for Brexit, Western journalists don't wax lyrical about the freedom struggles of the oppressed agriculturalists. The fact is that they loosen their standards when reporting on India, and that's a discredit to the profession. It's not so much rank Orientalism as it is simple self-indulgence. Thanks for watching. India Outside In for Wednesday, March 31st, 2021. You can find the relevant links below in the description. Thanks for watching. Please do join me next week for another edition of India Outside In.